Browsing the dark web is never safe, but for Ethan, the danger is choosing where he least expects it. Upon finding an old chat room forgotten for years, he soon realized that the users there were not normal. Names of missing people, fragmented messages, and a growing sense that he was being watched. When I finally figured out what was going on, it was too late. Ethan had become part of something much bigger, a digital world where the souls of the lost were trapped. And now he was next. Welcome to the channel where every story could be the last. Here we tell the darkest and most disturbing stories. If you like to feel that chill down your spine, subscribe now, activate the bell so you don't miss any chilling stories, and share them with your brave friends. Get ready, because the next story could be yours. The Forgotten Chat. Ethan has always been fascinated by technology. Since I was a teenager, I spent hours in front of the computer, exploring the deepest corners of the internet. Over time, interest in technology evolved into a dangerous curiosity about the dark web. There, he found strange forums, illegal marketplaces, and websites that had been abandoned for years. But he never got involved until now. One night, while casually browsing dark web forums, a mysterious link caught his eye. It had no description, just the title, The Forgotten Chat, written in an old font, almost as if it had faded with time. Ethan hesitated for a moment, but his curiosity got the better of him. When you clicked on the link, you were redirected to a dark page with an old, pixelated interface. It looked like something straight out of the early days of the internet. The screen showed a list of online users, about 15 names, all looking strangely common. John 45, Syracuse 82, Miker 1990. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary except absolute silence. There have been no recent conversations, and the last message was sent more than 5 years ago. Does this still work? Ethan muttered to himself, unaware that he was about to step into something far beyond his understanding. He typed a simple message into the chat. Ethan, hello, is anyone there? At first, nothing happened. The typing bar blinked, and the chat room remained eerie silent. He was about to close the page when suddenly a message appeared at the top of the list. John 45, you're finally back. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. The response was instantaneous, as if someone had been waiting for him the whole time. I went back? He whispered, confused. He responded quickly. Ethan, I'm back? I don't know what you're talking about. Who are you? There was a long, uncomfortable pause. Then another message appeared, this time from a different user. Syracuse 82, you left us. Everyone left us. The chat room seemed to come to life. Suddenly, several messages began to appear, one after another, each one more cryptic than the last. The words didn't make much sense, but one thing was clear. They believed Ethan belonged there. The feeling of discomfort began to increase, and he felt a chill run down his spine. That's weird, Ethan muttered as he looked at the screen. But despite the discomfort, his curiosity prevents him from leaving. He clicked on John 45's name, hoping there would be more information about the user. Instead of a normal profile, a strange window opened, showing just one sentence. Missing since 2003. Ethan's stomach dropped. He quickly clicked on Syracuse 82's name, and a similar window appeared. Missing since 1995. This can't be real, he said, his voice shaking. But how the data matched. Ethan knew stories of missing people, of cold cases that were never solved. But what did that have to do with a simple chat? Panic began to rise, but he forced himself to type again. Ethan, who are you guys? Is this some kind of joke? The cursor blinked as he waited for a response. After a few seconds, the screen flashed and a new message appeared. Miker 1990, we're stuck here. And now you are too. Ethan's fingers froze on the keyboard. The messages were becoming increasingly disturbing, as if he had just connected to something very old and dark, something that should not have been encountered. He tried to leave the page, but the closed button didn't work. The page was frozen. He tried every way, but nothing worked. Drug? He cursed, his breathing becoming heavy. Suddenly, a new message appeared on the screen, more personal this time. John 45, there's no point running away, Ethan. We already know you. Terror took over his body. They knew his name. But how? He had never used his real identity on the dark web. The entire system was locked down, and the only thing he could do was watch as new messages began to appear. Syracuse 82, you will disappear too. Like all of us. The feeling of suffocation or engulfment while trying to remain calm. Ethan didn't believe in the supernatural, but that chat room seemed to have a life of its own. He asked himself, turning away from the screen, his heart racing. That's when the computer screen started flickering again. A new message appeared, this time in a larger font, taking up all the space on the page. Welcome to the chat of the lost. You are now a part. Suddenly, his computer shut down on its own, plunging the room into total darkness. Ethan stood there, breathing heavily and his heart racing, listening only to silence. A silence so oppressive that it seemed to whisper in his ears. He reached a window trying to see something outside, but the street was completely deserted, covered in dense darkness. And then he listened. A faint but unmistakable sound, or something like a chat notification. But your computer has been turned off. Slowly, Ethan turned around, his gaze fixed on the turned-off laptop. He moved cautiously, and when he touched the keyboard, the screen lit up by itself. The chat room opened again, and the first thing he saw was a new message. Macabre 1990, look out the window. We are waiting for you. Ethan felt his heart race as he read the message. Look out the window. We're waiting for you. Even though everything in his mind screamed not to, he went to the window, pulling back the curtain. At first, the street was empty, covered in oppressive darkness. But then he saw a figure. Standing in the dim light of a streetlight, the silhouette seemed to watch him, motionless. He blinked, waiting for the figure to disappear, but it was there, not moving. Your cell phone vibrates. A new message. Do you see us now? Ethan closed the curtain with a sudden movement. His heart was beating so hard he could barely breathe. Something was very wrong with that chat. He knew I needed to leave the apartment. But when I tried to open the door, it wouldn't budge. It was locked from the inside. Panic began to take over. Your laptop made a loud notification sound. He hesitated before looking at the new message. There's no point running away, Ethan. You're already with us. The light in the room began to flicker, and he felt the temperature suddenly drop. An invisible presence seemed to fill him with suffocating terror. He tried turning off the computer, but nothing worked. Then, a new window appeared on the screen showing a live broadcast. The image was of the street in front of his building, and the figure standing on the lamppost was still there. Now she was closer, looking directly at Ethan's window. Time seemed to slow down. He tried to take a deep breath, but the air felt trapped in his lungs. He forced himself to look at the chat again, where new messages were appearing. Syracuse 82, we're stuck here just like you will be. John 45, there is no escape. Terror was crushing his mind. Ethan tried to turn off the computer again, but before he could touch the button, the monitor flickered and the video picture was gone. The broadcast now showed the door to his apartment. He took a step back, unable to process what he was selling. The door handle turned slowly. Ethan backed away slowly, feeling his panic growing as the doorknob turned. The room, once merely oppressive, now seemed too small for his collapsing mind. The door creaked open, but there was no one on the other side. Just the empty hallway with lights flickering as if something was wrong with the building. He glanced back at the computer, which was still displaying the live feed from the apartment door. But now, the camera seemed to be inside the room, filming Ethan from behind as if there was someone there with him. A chill ran down his spine, and he took a step back, turning sharply to face the room. Nobody. However, he knew he was being watched. He felt invisible eyes on him, like a ghostly presence. The laptop made another sound, a new message. It's happening, Ethan. It's almost time for us to meet. Desperate, Ethan ran to the door, out into the hallway. He began to run without looking back, hearing the echoes of his own footsteps and the sound of something else. Something following him. The lights in the hallway kept flickering, plunging him into darkness every few seconds. Every time the lights went out, he felt the presence getting closer, as if it was one step away from reaching him. When he reached the elevator, he pressed the button repeatedly, his heart skipped a beat. The doors slowly opened and he entered, pressing the button for the ground floor. But instead of going down, the elevator went up, taking him to the top floor. When the doors opened, he was faced with something he would never forget. A large, dark hall lit only by failed neon lights. In the center, there was a table with a laptop. The same chat room was opened, but this time, all users were online. Welcome to Chat of the Lost, appeared in large letters on the screen. Now you belong to us. The lights flickered, and around the room, figures emerged from the shadows. They were the same names he had seen in the chat. John 45, Syracuse 82, Macabre 1990. Their faces were pale, their eyes empty, as if their souls were ripped out and left to wander in the digital void. Ethan tried to run, but his legs felt heavy as if the ground was sapping his strength. The figures started moving towards him, surrounding him. He could hear songs, low voices broadcasting his name. Join us, Ethan. You're already lost. Ethan felt the desperation take over. He looked at his laptop, his only connection to the real world, but the screen now only showed a distorted reflection of himself. He tried to scream, but his voice was caught in his throat. The figures grabbed him, their icy hands pinning his arms and legs. His eyes shone with an unearthly light, and then everything went dark. Everything was dark. Absolute silence enveloped Ethan as he tried to move, but his body felt trapped in an endless void. He didn't know how much time had passed. Seconds? Minutes? Hours? His mind was on the verge of collapse, trying to process what was happening. Then, slowly he began to hear voices. They were low and distant, whispers that echoed in the darkness. As I paid more attention, I heard that they were the same voices I heard in the chat. The same people who disappeared. You're with us now. Never coming back. Suddenly, a faint light appeared in front of him. It was the glow of the laptop. He was back in the chat room, but this time the messages were clear. All online users were active, writing in a frenzy that made the screen flash with speed. Welcome, Ethan. Now you belong to the chat of the lost. Ethan tried to scream, but his voice wouldn't come out. He tried to move, but his body was paralyzed as if he was trapped in the chair in front of the laptop. He stared at the screen, waiting for something, anything to happen. But what he saw was worse than he could have ever imagined. Live video was back. The camera now showed his own face, but something was wrong. The reflection on the screen was a distorted version of himself. His eyes were dull, his skin pale, as if the life had been drained from him. It was as if he was watching his own soul slipping away. One last message appeared in the chat, filling the entire screen. There's no way out, Ethan. You're part of us now. It was at that moment that he understood. The chat room was more than a forgotten corner of the dark web. It was a portal, a place where the souls of those who accessed it were imprisoned forever. The people he had seen, John, Sarah, Mike, were not just victims. They were part of the system, stuck in an eternal loop, waiting for the next curious soul. And now he was the newest addition to the group. Suddenly, the lights in the room returned to normal, and the feeling of paralysis was remote. Ethan spoke quickly, his heart racing, breaking into a cold sweat. He glanced at his laptop. The chat room was still open, but this time with a single message flashing. You can never leave us. Ethan ran to the door, desperately trying to escape this nightmare. When he opened the door, he expected to see the hallway of his building, but instead he found a dark void, the same space he had felt before. He was trapped. There was no more way out. The laptop made another notification sound, echoing in the eerie silence. Ethan, still standing in the doorway, looked at the screen one last time. The camera now showed her image, sitting in front of the computer, with her eyes turned off and her expression blank like the others. He had become part of the forgotten chat, and no one would ever find him. Did you like this story? I left another scary story here on the card. Click on it. Do you have something incredible to share? If you or someone you know has had a hair-raising experience, send your story. Who knows, it might appear in our next video. Share your story in the comments or by email, and let's explore the mysteries of your story together.